Have you ever wanted to develop a focus working with military folks, military families? Are you in a market with a military base, or are you a veteran just looking to tap into that market? Today, I've got an expert for you. I've got Mr. Adam Chubbuck out of Arundel County, which if you don't know where that is, like I didn't, it is south of Baltimore, north of DC, towards the coast. Adam is not only a real estate rock star, he is a 20-year Navy veteran. His wife is actively still in the Army today, and he has 4 kids. I don't know how he does it all and still has any hair to show for it. But Adam, welcome to the show, my friend. How are you doing?
I'm good, Chris. Thank you, sir. I appreciate being here.
Yeah, absolutely, my friend. Well, on behalf of myself and all the folks watching this at some point later, first and foremost, we want to say thank you for your service and your wife's service, and honestly your family service, because I know it's a family commitment. Real quick, Adam, give us your background. How'd you get into real estate, and what does the business look like today?
Yeah, great question. So I got my license in 2019. I was at the tail end of my Navy career and trying to kind of get the boat closer to the dock before I jumped off, right? Like I had been investing in real estate. So I became a realtor because I ran out of my own money to go invest in more real estate, right? Like I was like, and I don't believe in partnerships. I like doing all my real estate solo. So I was like, hey, we gotta go make some more money. We made the money, but I've only bought 1 rental since becoming a realtor, and that's unintentional, but it's just kind of the way the game went. We've been so busy. Now we run a small team up here in Arundel County, a little different on the pronunciation there, but it's all good.
That's what I said, right?
Yeah, close enough, right? We call ourselves the Baltimore Annapolis market, and we have a team of 7 agents. We sell about 100 homes a year. Super focused. Our name of our team is Team Alpha Charlie of Douglas Realty. Obviously, we're super fired up to help the veteran community, but we kind of help everybody that we come in path with that we can provide a service to.
So let's do this first. Let's serve our veterans. So let's say somebody is about to retire from military service. They're considering, or maybe they're just a veteran, they're considering getting in the business. What would be the 1, 2, 3 pieces of advice that you would give them as somebody that's kind of, a little bit farther down the road now and having done that yourself?
Yeah, so I was fortunate. I got to use SkillBridge. I had a lot of medical stuff going on at the end of my career. So like I basically got a full year of Navy paycheck and working as a realtor full time, right? Which is a very unique scenario, right?
Yeah.
That's not typical, but like the Navy, military, DOD in general does offer SkillBridge, some programs up to 6 months. I would highly encourage them, get your license out of the way, get that done, then go into your SkillBridge. And that gives you that 6-month buffer where you're getting that Navy, Army, Marine Corps W-2 paycheck. So you're not like desperate to make things happen. And you're able to kind of like soften the blow transition, right? Maybe get a few deals in pipeline and you can kind of start learning how to sell real estate, right? That would be my #1 recommendation is utilize that SkillBridge. If you're already out, find a high volume team that you can glean as much information from and learn the things you don't know.
Yeah. And it's interesting you say that because like even non-veteran like folks, when they get into real estate, I usually like to tell people like, hey, like you're going to need some sort of 3 to 6 month runway because most people don't come out of the gate and pop, even if you pop deals your first month, like you're still 60 days from a paycheck typically.
Well, and building that pipeline, right? Because everybody, like a lot of realtors love to like, they go, oh, we got one under contract. They're real high. They focus everything on that one contract. And then that contract closes and we've got nothing for 90 days, right? It's more, I would rather do this, stay even, streamline, keel, 333, 666, whatever the number is, and know that I have stuff coming instead of doing the high valleys, high peaks.
And that's a whole nother podcast.
I know.
Yeah. All right. So let's say somebody's coming out of the service, whatever, branch that might be. They're getting into real estate. What would be, I mean, it seems like a natural transition would be to work with, active duty as well as veterans. What would somebody need to do to kind of like get into that niche or kind of, grow in that niche?
That's an interesting question, right? So like, I always like to think of sphere of influence, as our number one target of people. Find the people that already know, like, and trust us. Now you've got to establish a baseline of knowledge. You've got to like show a competency and some skills there, and you can buy some of those skills. And what I mean by that is getting on that team, right? So maybe you don't have those numbers, but the we numbers do, right? The team does this, the brokerage does this, and leverage that for your success. Social media, right? Like, I know you've heard this before, but don't be a secret agent, right? How many agents do we know that if you were to go look at their Instagram or their Facebook or their TikTok or whatever social media platform we're finding sexy this week, when was the last time they posted, right? Yeah. Have you posted this week? Have you posted this month? Have you posted this year? Like, I know we can both think of instances of realtors that say they're high producing realtors that aren't posting, and like, nobody, you got to be top of mind. We always need to be focused on staying top of mind with everybody.
Totally. And I would imagine, so if you're going after a active duty or a veteran niche, I would imagine like it would be wise to put your credentials in your social profiles, like, hey, Navy veteran, active Army, whatever it might be, like, tattoo the Veteran Affairs logo on your forehead. Like, talk to me about some of that stuff, just so, because I got to imagine that folks that are military would prefer to deal with other military folks. So at least that's kind of what I've gauged.
Yeah, and I think you need to kind of take it from a standpoint of like, hey, I've been in your shoes. I know what it's like to do this, but don't be overbearing with it, right? Like, I think unless you look at who Adam is as a person, like you go kind of like deep into my history, it wouldn't be immediately apparent that like I'm a military guy at heart, right? Like, so like if it comes up naturally in conversation, because I think we're talking now outside of the sphere, right? But if we're talking outside the sphere, like the veteran needs to know that you're there to support them. You've been through it, but I wouldn't necessarily make it your lead, right? Because one thing veterans hate to be, I think everybody hates it, but to be sold, right? And I think if you do it kind of in a disingenuous way, it'll feel super salesy. But like somebody goes, oh, we're using a VA loan. Oh, right on, man. Like what branch of service were you in? And then, allows a natural rapport building step in there.
Okay. So what are, I don't have any military background. What are some of the other do's and don'ts if somebody's coming out of the service to kind of develop that niche?
Here's my number one, right?
Yeah.
Well, to develop that niche is a little different answer, but here's my number one, I guess, push for VA is don't use a big bank that you've heard of before, because they're very expensive to use those big names. And we won't slander anybody on this podcast. That's not the goal of it. But if your name rhymes with USA, Navy Federal, Veterans United, right? They're not here for the veteran's best interest, right? You do a lot of business. Try to call Navy Federal on a Saturday and get that veteran taken care of. You're not going to get anybody until Monday. And we both know majority of business is taken care of on a weekend, especially for buyers, right? Yeah. So, leverage. I think it's almost more important to leverage yourself with a good local lender that is competent, and then learn those business rules. There's a lot of, I'm still learning business rules about be the knowledge broker for that VA loan. Like I learned 2 weeks ago, that a VA buyer cannot assume solar debt. I did not know that prior to that. Yeah, right. So like those are key pieces. So if I'm showing a house in Richmond, your market, right? Not my market, but I'm coming down to show a house and it's got solar panels, and those solar panels are anything but leased or owned, we can't even buy that house. So we're wasting somebody's time, right? Knowing those pieces, knowing that a VA home inspection or a VA appraisal is not the same as a home inspection. That's a misnomer that we have a lot, right? People go, oh, well, the VA is going to come inspect this house. Yeah, they're going to come look at this house and check it for safety items, but it's not the same as going through a home inspection, right? Totally. So being the knowledge broker for all the parts of a VA transaction, I think is critical.
Yeah. And would be a smart move if you're going to be working with a lot of clients that are using VA loans to know the intricacies of that. All right. So let's take a different route. So let's say me. Let's say I'm not of a military background, but I realize pretty quick I'm in a market that's close to a military base. I'm in Annapolis, Maryland. I'm in, Colonial Heights, Virginia. I'm in Petersburg. I'm in Hopewell, wherever. What would be some of the things that you would tell a civilian agent that they should know if they wanted to do more military business?
All right. I think this is great. So YouTube, PCSing to the area, right? If you're a civilian agent and you don't have necessarily access to the base, but like the people that are coming to the base want to know about the surrounding area, well, be the knowledge broker for that surrounding area, right? Here's top 5 parks in Hopewell. Here's the top 5 parks in Colonial Heights. Here's the 3 schools, all the things, right? Best Tex-Mex restaurants and all the things, right? Be the knowledge broker for that local area. And I think you would still stand a chance to grab in some of that business, right? Just because you're a veteran realtor doesn't mean that you're a good realtor, right? So like, don't rely on that. Don't rely on that too heavy would be my sentiment there.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I would imagine it would be wise to, just like any other relocation business, to like create a YouTube channel, talk about your market, talk about it specifically through the lens of folks PCSing, because, we all know agents that have created relocation style YouTube channels and they absolutely crush. But I think if you could gear that towards a military clientele, all the more, because those folks are no different than anybody else. They're going to go on YouTube and they're going to Google and they're going to try to figure out that area, I would imagine.
100%, right? People want to like make it easy. Where do I go to dinner? Where do I take my kids? What is there for fun to do around here? All major shopping, right? Like if you're coming from Washington State or, overseas, there might be things that have changed in the last 3 years since you left, right? Even I think that's where I would recommend starting, right? And then geotagging and doing all the things to make it, and tying in your Google My Business profile. That's a whole nother podcast in itself, but
yeah. So, and are there also resources? Let's say I live in an area, let's say I live outside of Fort Greg Adams, or if I live outside of what's the base in Annapolis? Forget my ignorance.
Well, so there's Naval Station Annapolis, where the Naval Academy is at, and then we have Fort Meade.
Okay.
And then, Pentagon, DC, we're only like 45 minutes to DC. So it's relatively close, if you will.
So are there resources where if somebody wanted to keep up with like what's going on in the base, what people are coming in, the happenings of that, are there resources people can like, is there newsletters folks can sign up for? Or
yeah, I think those are more base specific. Like, so like Fort Meade has like their neighborhood happenings, and, try to get on those local. Think of it more of like a next door kind of, like there's Facebook pages for everything.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of those hard things to kind of break into, right? If you're kind of an outsider, it's kind of hard to step into that circle, if you will. Base housing office, base housing office is kind of tough because they're only focused on placing people on base. It might be a way to get rental referrals out of it, but it wouldn't necessarily be a consistent way, in my opinion, and by no means the right opinion, to get buyer referrals out of it, because those people are going to look for rental on base. Say base is full, then they're going to be looking to rent out in town. So, and generally military population moves every 36 months, if not sooner. So, I don't know if there's necessarily a way, and that's why like bases are also super protective of private information, right? So like You're not going to get troop movements in. It's not like they're going to give you a list and say, hey, call these people, right? Like if only, but
yeah.
Really
well, do you know Clay Ellis?
I don't.
In Del Rio, Texas. So Clay's a really good guy. He lives in Del Rio, Texas, which is right at the U.S.-Mexico border. So they, like, if you turn on Fox News, I always joke with everybody when I introduce Clay. I'm like, yeah, hey, if you turn on Fox News, like Clay's house is in the background. But right outside, right on the border, right outside of an Air Force base, and like he can tell you the types of aircrafts that they have on that base. He can tell you how many folks that Border Patrol is bringing in. Like he knows his market cold.
Right.
And he's a civilian, but like it's no wonder to me why he crushes with like the Border Patrol folks and the Air Force folks, because he just knows that world so well. So so let's talk about on the transactional side. So is there anything folks should be thinking about doing, not doing, to kind of earn that trust with military folks? Is there anything specific, outside of stuff that you would?
Yes, right. And I think it's explaining, and we've gotten into this culture, if you will, that like we assume everybody knows what we know, and it's just not the case, right? So sit down, take the time to explain everything that they're signing. Don't, some guys want you to read everything verbatim and then break it down for them, right? Taking that extra time, right? Like Maryland listing agreement is 12 pages, right? And I know it like the front and back of my hand, just because I've sat down and gone through it so many times with so many different people, because it's jumbled language to you and I. It's jumbled language when I first read it, like, like when they come out with the change orders of everything.
Yeah.
It's tough to like dissect that stuff sometimes. It's even harder if you're not doing this on a daily basis, right? So take the time. Don't assume that anybody knows what you know, and break it down, right? We call it breaking it down Barney style in the military. Just break it down to the lowest common denominator and make it make sense. And if you take the time to make it make sense, you're going to gain their trust faster than anything. And don't just send them something to sign. Call, explain it, whatever. A lot of times it's geographical. Like I'm helping a guy from Korea right now. He'll never see the house that he's buying. I'm helping another young lady who's coming from Texas. She'll never see the house that she's buying, right? Until she's here. She made the decision that she wants to buy a house before she gets here. Great. We love that. What we do is we show up to the house. I'm very different. A lot of agents will kind of go in and massage what their clients can see. I send them everything and say, tell me what you'd like to see, right? Because you get to a certain point of busyness, you just don't have the time to go in and curate every listing that you want them to see, right? So I say, hey, tell me the house that you want to see. She'd send me a list. I'd make a showing schedule for, say, 8 or 9 of them, go shoot a YouTube video. At the end of the YouTube video, I would take like a minute and a half, break down my thoughts on the video. And that allows them also to go back and watch different parts. I think it's better than an in-person showing. Some people need to touch and get the feel of things. I get it. It's not for everybody. But like she's going to go through the entire VA purchasing process without actually seeing her house until she moves into it. So, and all of those videos are private. You don't have to list everything public that we put online, right? But we've built that trust and rapport with her. And like we went through the home inspection. Home inspection was anything but clean, but we got through it, right? Just having conversations, explaining it, making them comfortable.
So, and that's a pro tip for you guys out there in listener land. If you got clients that are viewing homes virtually, don't do the FaceTime showing. It's nice to be able to interact, but if you do the YouTube showing, we did a lot of those during COVID.
Yep.
You can record it, you can send it, they can rewatch it, they can watch it whenever, wherever. They can watch it as many times as they want. The other thing that I like, Adam, from a scheduling perspective is like, now you're no longer trying to schedule showings on their time. You could do it whenever it works for you. Exactly. Hey, I'm just going to pop you over the video, and it makes your life a whole lot easier when you're acting as a marriage agent. And
we don't have to overcomplicate this. This isn't like the same kind of content that we'd be putting out in front of like for social media purposes.
Right.
Like this is straight phone to upload, and it's raw and it's genuine, and people value raw and genuine, right? It's not churched up. We don't have to make it fancy. I like it that way. And I agree 1,000% from the schedule standpoint.
You're not powdering your nose before you're shooting these videos.
Well, I mean, maybe.
Yeah. What else? While we're on that topic, any other pro tips or best practices you found with helping buyers that are buying remotely before because not only have they never seen the house, they really don't know the area, I would imagine as well.
Right. Well, and that's where like you really are their eyes and ears, and you got to have that conversation with them, right? Like I'm a very frank person. I have very frank conversations with my clients. I'm not the emotional one, right? Like I will tell you exactly what I think about something and take it or leave it, right? Essentially. The other part is having a team prepared. And this is like outside of your actual team, but like we have a high volume lender that we work a lot with. Every one of the vendors that I I don't want to say push, but like recommend to these people, I've personally used, right? So the lender, my recommendation is, hey, I've used this lender to buy my own home, right? The home inspector inspected my house when we bought it.
Yeah.
title company, you know, all of these things, right? And it's not fluff. That's a true statement. Anybody I recommend to you, I've personally used. And that way you have that relationship. So building a relationship team behind the scenes that will help support you is almost as important as how good you are as a person, right? So we both know if you get a home inspector that you've never used, that's a Debbie Downer, or, you know, the sky is falling, we need to tear down this house kind of guy, then that could kill a deal faster than somebody who wants to take the time to explain it and be like, oh yeah, there was this, it was missing some shingles up there. Here's what you need to do. It should be, you know, that kind of thing.
And oh, by the way, make sure that you are treating your vendors respectfully, taking care of them, making sure they get paid, because you know, real estate is a team sport. And if you are not looking out for your vendors, or if you're running late all the time and wasting their time, like, it's going to be hard to get good people to work with you. And that's ultimately going to cost you at some point.
Absolutely. And like, here's another example of why that's important. The home inspector we work with, we pre-schedule every home inspection before we actually send the contract. Now, part of that is me pretty confident that we're going to get it, but it also it does two things. It lays out a plan for the listing agent to brief, like, okay, here's when they're going to do this. Yeah. And then the buyer knows, especially if they're virtual, okay, Adam's going to the home inspection on Tuesday at 9 a.m. I should have a result by 1 o'clock or something. You know, it really helps paint out the picture. A lot of military people are planners, and they like to see that full plan kind of coming together.
So you've got to be, yeah. And I was going to get to that, because I've noticed with my military folks, they are very precise. They're very specific, which is good, right? Mm-hmm. So you've got to be detail oriented. You've got to make sure that you're communicating details with them, because they want to know what the plan is.
Well, we have a buyer SOP, standard operating procedures, that will take you through pretty much the first 2 weeks, day by day, on what we're expecting and what you can expect from us. Yeah. So day 1 to 5, we're going to do a home inspection. Day 2 of contract, we're ordering the appraisal. The lender's ordering the appraisal. One of our benefits is our in-house lender, his office is right next door, and our title is right above us, right? So I have all of my main players in my building, so that makes my life a little easier. But I know the day that you go under contract, they're going to disclose you. Next day, they're going to order the appraisal. We pay for all appraisals in-house, so we can control that a little bit easier. Then by day 3 to 5, we're probably doing home inspection. Day 7 to 10, we're looking for HOA condo docs, depending on if they're needed, you know, and really driving that timeline forward, right? Like, we have 3 closing next week that are all CTC, and I like having that plan and removing that burden from the client having to be stressed about it.
Yeah. And if you're a newer agent out there and you're like, man, I don't even know what the steps are, go to your team leader, go to an experienced agent in your office or outside your office and say, you know, hey, I'll buy you a cup of coffee, or can I call you when you're driving to your appointment? Can you walk me through what these steps are? Because you don't necessarily need that. You need the experience, but it doesn't have to be yours. You can borrow that from other people. What are some, Adam, what are some other things, just as far as best practices, communication wise, with military folks? Because they tend to be a little bit of a serious bunch. And if you earn their trust, you're golden. But if you break that trust, or you do, or if they don't believe that you're competent, I found, like, the conversation ends pretty quick.
Yeah. So I think my first question for any client is, how do you like to communicate, right? Some clients want to hear a voice. Some are so, like, I'm super ADHD. I don't do phone calls unless I absolutely have to. Right. So other than prospecting and following up with people, I'm really not trying to be on the phone. I want to be texting, because I can do 7 things at once. Right. Sure. So figuring out how they want to do it. If I call you and you don't answer, I don't text you. I send you a video to follow up with it. Right. And that allows me to express a lot more emotion, character, you know, and like kind of level. Like, I can tell you 2 things the same, and you could misread them, but if I send you a video and you can hear the emphasis in my voice, you understand what's going on. Like, I recapped that home inspection from Tuesday with that client that will never see the house. And like, I sent her this video before she read the home inspection. And that way she's going into the home inspection with the expectation kind of level headed, right? First time home buyer, we go there, there's shingles missing on the roof. The AC didn't work. And I was like, hey, deep breath. We're going to figure this out. We're going to do this. Yeah. And we're buying this house as is, right? We got the seller to take care of it. But like instilling that confidence in the client is important. That's not just for military people, VA people. That's any client in general.
Yeah. Well, you've got to be cool, calm, and collected, because you've got to be the leader in the transaction. If you're just spewing your emotion on your client, like that's you're not doing what you're supposed to do as an agent.
Well, there's Chris, there's 3 keys to every real estate transaction, right? Open and honest communication, realistic expectations, and controlling the narrative. Controlling the narrative is almost the most important thing. If I go to you and say, this house is falling apart, you're never going to close anything. But if you go, oh, I've seen this before, we'll figure out a way. I know a thing or two because I've seen a thing or two, right? That kind of thing. Just deep breath with everybody.
And what advice would you give to somebody if they're new and they haven't had that experience? Like, how can they pull that off if they internally are crapping their pants?
Yeah. So I have this amazing agent who used to be my admin, who's now a full-time realtor. She's doing amazing, but like, she's definitely a panic off the deep end kind of person. And I'm like, Linz, let's take a deep breath, right? Is this really gonna I'm like, all right, we're good. You got to kind of, sometimes I like to think, I tell people, think about how you would want to be told this and then put it out, right? You wouldn't want somebody yelling and screaming in your face, this house is gonna fall apart. Oh my God. I can't get a hold of this again. Oh my God. Take a deep breath and communicate the message, right? Don't make a mountain out of a molehill, right? Just roll along with the punches.
Yeah. Be the fire extinguisher, not the accelerant.
Wow. There you go. I like that.
Yeah. All right, Adam. Well, my friend, you've been more than generous with your time, which we appreciate. Any 1, 2, 3 parting pieces of advice for anybody out there that is newer in the business that is looking to develop into this niche? Yeah.
I mean, so if you're looking new in the business, looking to grow into the niche, I would leverage sphere of influence, right? Especially if you have a veteran background, leverage the people you already know around you. And maybe it's not leverage them for a deal, but make sure that they know that you're in the business, you're competent, and you can actually help somebody who needs help, right? I think a lot of times when we don't get asked to do something or somebody doesn't use us, it's because they go, oh, I forgot about you, or I didn't know, right? And that's, it's the worst thing I want to hear.
What are 3 things, tactically speaking, that somebody could do to stay in front of their sphere?
So 5541, right? Let's weaponize some prospecting. Call 5 people you haven't talked to in a while, 5 follow-up phone calls, 4 texts, and 1 post a day. That's aggressive. I get it. I fully acknowledge it. But if you want to really grow your pipeline, talking to 30 people a week can only help that. And that's not prospecting. That's just staying on top of it.
Yeah. And I want to make the argument, if you are a full-time sales professional that is not aggressive, that is kind of like bare minimum. Like it's the job, folks. Like this is what you signed up for, whether you like it or not.
And here's a fun fact, right? The average realtor sold 4 houses last year. Average realtor made 45 grand. Do you want to be average? I don't want to be average. I can't be average, right? Like we need to keep pushing that. And that's what it takes to keep the pipeline rolling. It's that kind of production.
Absolutely, my friend. Absolutely. All right, dude. Well, hey, if anybody has referrals for you, we'll put your information below. Yep. Remind them of the marketplace that you serve and the different.
Yes, we're licensed Baltimore or licensed Maryland and DC. We are based in Arundel County, which is Annapolis, just outside of Baltimore, Pasadena, Glen Burnie, but we serve all of Maryland.
Beautiful. And what remind us of the military bases that are around you?
So we got naval support activity in Annapolis and Fort Meade are our 2 big feeders.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you, my friend. Thank you again for your service. Thank you for your wife's continued service, not only to our military, but keeping up with you and 4 kids. I hope
you drive, right? Like nobody braves you for the driving, it's like, ugh.
Yeah, so if you're driving from DC to Baltimore, buckle up.
Yeah, watch out for my kids.
All right, brother. We'll see you.
Thanks, Chris. I'll see you.